Hey guys, we're back with another video here, and we are launching that rocket I built in the last episode. If you haven't seen that, you need to go check it out. It'll be linked in the description below. And like before, we're going to Jupiter here, but we're doing our standard orbit here first. We're following that angle in the top left corner, and you just saw there a bottom stage separate and a actual working launch stage doesn't separate. So with the staging, it has its own fuel tank, and it just kind of rocketed off to the side. You can see here now we're on our second stage. We're burning up into orbit here. And I'm going for a decently high, about a 75 kilometer apoapsis here, just so that we are decently above the atmosphere, so we don't accidentally burn into it when we end up doing our transfer burn. And we don't need to be perfectly circular either. You can see we're going to our transfer window here. And we'll be making this burn now to get all the way to Jupiter. We have to separate our backstage there, and now we are on our third stage. Now, I thought this would be way better than it ended up being. I kind of underestimated the amount of fuel needed for this mission, but we do get all the way to Jupiter. I do decide here that we are going to aerobrake off the atmosphere of Jupiter so that we can, lower our apoapsis basically for free and capture into orbit basically for free. Use the RCS here to kind of correct it a little bit, but I realized quickly that we're just too far away to do precise enough systems here. And I do this here, we get pretty close before I lower our apoapsis, and for the first time around, I don't put it low enough. You can see here I'm making a quick save and refilling all those tanks from the RCS. And then here you can see we do not pass low enough into the atmosphere where there's no way we are going to capture here at all. In fact, we can still time warp, but I lower it down to 67, which actually, if I had to think about it, was probably too low. Or maybe, I don't know. Based on the rest of this video, it's kind of a open question on what the correct amount was. We can see now here, I'm originally trying to get one for Europa, but I end up deciding to switch destinations based on the amount of fuel that we have left, because we have to raise our apoapsis a lot to get to Europa, whereas we can just raise it a little bit and end up getting to Ganymede. But we do actually end up trying to go to Europa here, and we do not do well. I tried to capture, but I didn't. I started the burn way too late. We end up flying past it. I reloaded the quick save, and now we're going to go for Io. And we actually ran out of fuel on our bottom stage, so I have to do the quick, Apollo-style turnaround there. And now I have to actually use what was going to be return fuel to get back to, or not to get back to, but to get to Io. I try to use the ion engines, but that's just going to take way, way, way too long. So I give up and decide to use our transfer fuel. And here is raising our apoapsis to actually be, a perfect match for Io, and then we can time warp around until we do get that perfect encounter. You can see here, plus 4 meters per second, and we end up getting our encounter. I have to wait a little bit here just to time warp around to the correct point, but now that we're getting there, we have a apoapsis actually in the surface, so I have to burn radial out a little bit before I burn retrograde here in orbit and try to circularize ourselves. Unfortunately, though, I actually ended up running out of fuel and just discarded that whole surface module, so we just have the capsule left. So a little bit tricky on how exactly we're going to get back, and we do actually end up having to burn farther out. We would need to, but I just do a second burn to lower our apoapsis again to something, a little more circular before we do our final descent. So first we're going to be sending down the lander after we separate away from the rest of the stuff. And this is just because the lander is an immobile thing. So if I can land this anywhere and then kind of move the rover closer and, drive it over there. So we're going to be landing this one, and this one's very easy. Unfortunately, it turns out I built the craft wrong, and that center engine doesn't work, so it's really just dead weight, which probably contributed to the whole what's about to happen with the rest of this mission. We had the rover kind of stuck to the capsule there with the docking port just due to some time warp issues. So I have to try to fix that a little bit, but it ends up separating. And once we come around here, I start to burn the ion engines just a little bit. This process, I underestimated. I wasn't originally planning on coming here, is the problem. So this craft was not meant to deal with the gravity on Io. So it is grossly, it could still probably technically land, but I was not patient enough and ended up, well, as you'll see here shortly, I overshot it way, way, way too much. We did not slow down nowhere near fast enough, and we were coming down way too fast, where I ended up here. I'm burning as hard as I can, and it's doing absolutely nothing. RCS has no effect. I'm trying to burn straight up now, but just to skip over it, but we end up crashing into the terrain. And that kind of leaves two things stuck around Jupiter, and we'll have to send a rescue mission in the next video, so make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe so you can catch that one next time, and we'll see you all later. Bye.